dreams change.
Yeah.
Getting traded was not my initially desired outcome when I was 15, saying, hey, let me go get drafted and then get traded and then go from there.
Yeah.
But when I got traded, I realized that it was an opportunity that I had overlooked, and one that ended up being really welcome once I really got on the ground in San Jose. Now, especially 18 months down the road, seeing all the opportunities that are here on the field, off the field, it feels like that was a calling for me, and something that I would encourage younger players or younger professionals going through life. That, you might have a story written out, but when it changes, it's not necessarily for the worse. It's what you make of it from there.
Yeah. First, just want to say, Dad, you're with us in spirit. Someone has got to work a day job, so you're with us in spirit. But we're back. Jeremy, what's up? It's been a minute. It's been a minute
since I've been on the pod, but we've been doing our thing offline.
I know it is. Selfishly, that is something very nice to have you close by for. But I have been wanting to catch up with you because it has been, I think, 2 years and 2 months since our last episode. I was listening to it this morning, just get in the zone, and a lot has changed. I think a lot of good things have happened in both of our lives. I mean, I'm no longer playing professional soccer. You're in a new city. You have a lot going on and off the field. So I'm excited to just kind of catch up a little bit for our audience, go into a little bit of topics of what has happened over the last couple of years, and really just continue. I think the podcast is a good opportunity for a space for athletes, entrepreneurs, creatives, people like ourselves to just chop it up and talk about topics that we all experience, and really just a safe space for us to talk about things that are interesting to us. So it's crazy kind of looking back at the last 2.5 years. Like I just said, you're playing for a different team. You're in a different city now. We were not able to do this 2 years ago because we're on Zoom.
Yeah, we were dead on Zoom, just trying to make it work. And it gave you a new skill set, editing and creating videos that way. But
I know, I like this better though. This is better. We got to, hang out a little bit before. I tried to offer you some cauliflower leftovers from last night, which unfortunately were not taken. I ate myself. They were great. But let's just get into a little bit of obviously the first thing is we're in a new place. You're in a new city. We talked in that first episode about, the rise of breaking through the second team. I think you set the record for most consecutive appearances for the Timbers at the time. And, you were kind of making your way to being a mainstay within that front line, and then mid-season you get traded. Obviously that's, a big change for anyone, but someone who was drafted to a team in that city for a few years, obviously you developed a special relationship with the fans and the city. What was it like to go through that experience? And then, you went to San Jose and hit the ground running. So kind of what was it like to go through that, and then what was your mentality when you got to the Bay? And then obviously we can talk about some of the success you've had since being here.
Yeah, I think it was a reality check to get traded at that time. I had always been someone who's very meticulous in how I plan my life to a fault, and I had this very specific pathway I wanted for my career that dated back to high school when I had the chance to train at Fulham, and for passport reasons, I was not able to fulfill that dream. And from then, I really set on a journey to accomplish that and try and get back overseas. Yeah. And so the early part of my career was really focused on, okay, when do I break through from the first team to the second team, or from the second to the first team? When do I become someone that, is known in the Major League Soccer ecosystem as a goal scorer? What is my niche within the Timbers? And I think by the time I got traded, I started to realize that, my career would have a different path. Not necessarily one that was better or worse, but one in which that I did not plan for. I never planned to be traded. I never asked for it or expected it. It's just something that in that moment, personal desires aside for all parties, made most sense for everyone. Going from the second team to the first team, Portland's a competitive environment, one that spends a lot of money in the front line, and at the time we had a lot of resources there. And when you are a valuable asset in the league, which I was at the time and hopefully will continue to be, there was value to be had, and San Jose capitalized on that. So it was a difficult moment. Thankfully, I had my mother there with me. She was there to watch games, and a couple of days before her trip, I said, "Look, I might be traded. I don't know."
So was there like a you had an idea that it was a possible thing, like it wasn't like completely left field?
No, it wasn't out of the blue.
Yeah.
It wasn't, as I said, it wasn't anyone's desired circumstance or outcome, but I had a little bit of runway, and that allowed the process to be as respectful as possible, given the immense nature of it. So my mother still came out. She watched a game in which I was in the stands for, which ironically was against San Jose. And it was weird. I mean, I was watching that game with my Timbers teammates for the last time, the ones that didn't get rostered. But I was staring essentially both my teams down from up high and wondering, where do I sit? Do I want the Timbers to win? This is my last game as one of their teammates. Do I want the Quakes to win so that when I get there, I mean, we're in a better position for the playoffs? Like, how do I factor all these various different things? And it was, as I said, it was difficult. But I had great support from my mother, who was there, my family, who was a little bit at a distance, but with me emotionally. And ultimately, I knew that it was the right opportunity, given where we had come to. So the mentality was about absorbing the emotions of the day, whether it was the highs, the lows, the anger, the excitement, allowing all that to come in the various waves that they came. I mean, there were 5 hours leading up to the game, and I went through everything. But as soon as I was going to get to San Jose, I wanted to hit the ground running. And for the last part of that season, it was difficult. Once I hit my flow against LA Galaxy, really built good relationships on and off the field with the team, I got a concussion, and that really knocked me back. By the time I came back, I felt like I was performing, but I wasn't able to find the rhythm and the goals. And at that point, I just needed the season to be over. Once it was starting to get to like that last game, I was running as hard as I could, trying to find goals to just lift myself up. But I knew that I would benefit from 3 months. And then 2022, really, it allowed me to show the Quakes and the league what I was about.
No, I mean, any sort of move or change of systems, change of personnel, teammates, all that, it's natural for it not to click right away. It's natural, and you had a concussion as well. So I don't think anyone's judging you on those few months. But I just want to kind of revisit a little bit. You said it was a reality check. And I know you from the training ground. I know you from the facility. I've seen you prepare for games. It's not like there was much to check. It's not like you were in Portland fucking about, going out to Tube Tuesday, messing around. It's like you were a pro. You were a pro's pro. And so, obviously being traded, from a mentality standpoint, you think they didn't want me. I wasn't good enough here. Let me prove them wrong. But aside from that, what was the reality check? Was it just that this is, this fairy tale I had of being at the Timbers and then going abroad isn't the fairy tale I maybe thought it was? Or did it affect the way you worked, the way you prepared? Because I know you, you're a pro. It's not like you needed to mentally be checked, so I'm a little curious.
I think for me, it was about understanding that the storybook ending is not always the reality. There's very few players that get that in their careers. And, while I can be envious of that, there's also a huge backstory behind someone getting that fairy tale ending. So again, for me, it was, can I, win with the Timbers, which I was fortunate to do at MLS's back. I know 2018 MLS Cup didn't go our way, but can I be a part of a winning culture, which check, hit that box.
Yeah.
And then can I be a part of a winning national team culture at the youth level up to the senior level, hit that part in the U20 World Cup, kind of started to rise into the U23s, and then had another setback with the 23s that would ultimately carry on with the first team. But ultimately it was knowing that although I had these plans for myself, I had to be adaptable.
Yeah.
And knowing that San Jose was an option that gave me exactly what I needed, the opportunity to play up top, show myself that I can score goals, show the people who invested in me that I could score, and ultimately show the Portland fan base that believed that I could score goals, even the Portland organization to some extent that believed I could score, that I could do it, and knowing that trade ended amicably, because we're all good people who want the right thing, but it just put a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah. No, I think right when you started going into a little bit more detail about the fairy tale ending, that definitely struck a chord with me. I was thinking, like, if I work my ass off in soccer, I'll get to, play professionally. I'll hopefully play at the highest level. If I can get to MLS, great. And then, at that time, the roots were Nisa. And I was like, if I can play MLS, great. If I can, play abroad somewhere, whether it's Israel, second division, somewhere, Sweden, whatever, do that and come home, retire, play for my hometown team, and right off into the sunset. That was obviously switched up very soon when the Roots moved up to USL Championship. COVID hit. Timbers definitely didn't want me in the MLS, so went and played for the Roots. And after that first year, for those that know how that first year went, there was, definitely not a fairy tale. But that offseason, I was called one morning and told, hey, the club is trying to trade you right now. Like, just a heads up, the club is trying to trade you. Like, you will likely be traded in the next few days. And so, like, me, as someone who, like, grew up with this idea of, like, fairy tale, like, my hometown team is trying to trade me.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Like, and mind you, this happened the same day that a video went out on Instagram by the team saying hometown kid is back for another year, with, like, hype up clips of me in the locker room and stuff. And so, yeah, when you say, like, we have these ideas for our career, and then, like, you get smacked in the fucking face of, like, reality of just, like, one, the business side of things, and two, just, like, the cutthroat nature of it, So I definitely can relate to the having this idea of what and how things are supposed to go, and then a wrench being thrown in it. But then I think, something that you now have the opportunity to do and have been doing is, like, write your own fucking story.
Yeah.
Like, so what, you got traded, like, you just bagged 17 goals last year and were a top 8 scorer, top 9 scorer in the league. Now you're on pace to do the same. So it's like, whatever you had of this idea, like, yeah, it might not be the perfect thing, but it's never going to be, it's like LeBron James may be the one and, like, only fairy tale ending. And even him, like, he's had a lot of stuff happen that,
and
is
honestly,
not a fairy tale.
The jury's still out. I mean,
Yeah.
He's had a lot of things. He's worked his way into a lot of situations, and he's taken a lot of control of his career in a way that, I look up to. I think a lot of athletes can try and emulate to our relative levels. But who knows what's going to happen? He's getting to an age where he's starting to fantasize about other opportunities, possibly playing with his son, how our team's going to allow him to fulfill that when Bronny, earns that opportunity. So I think what my biggest takeaway was, dreams change.
Yeah.
Getting traded was not my initially desired outcome when I was 15, saying, hey, let me go get drafted and then get traded and then go from there.
Yeah.
But when I got traded, I realized that it was an opportunity that I had overlooked, and one that ended up being really welcome once I really got on the ground in San Jose. Now, especially 18 months down the road, seeing all the opportunities that are here on the field, off the field, it feels like that was a calling for me, and something that I would encourage younger players or younger professionals going through life that, you might have a story written out, but when it changes, it's not necessarily for the worse. It's what you make of it from there.
Yeah, no, I think that's great wisdom, because I mean, yeah, especially if you're talking about young players, like, again, 1% of the 1% are going to go to the college that they want to go to and receive that contract or opportunity to play professionally at the right moment. So whether it's a trade, whether it's an injury, whether it's, getting cut from a team, anything, it's not that incident that will define you. It's how do you react to that? What is the next opportunity? And so now kind of looking at post-trade, again, I mentioned you just had 17 goals last year. This year you got 4 already. Just talk a little bit about last year maybe, and kind of what it was like. You were the, without a doubt, number 9 for the Quakes. Like, there was at times question marks with the Timbers of, are you the 9? Are you playing winger? Like, are they looking at you as the 9? In the Quakes, there's no question you're the 9. You are the goal scorer. And so what was it like adjustment-wise? Was there a switch that resulted in that kind of leap in goals? Was it simply just opportunity? Was it anything that you changed mentally, or just maybe could you speak a little bit about, some of the success you had last year and just bleeding into this year?
Yeah, I think I'll start back with the Timbers. When you're a young player trying to make your mark on a veteran established locker room that's had a lot of success, you realize that opportunities are few and far between. I think I realized that my rookie year, first and foremost, when my first chance to play with the first team was basically with T2 in an Open Cup game against S2, and recognizing that I didn't take full advantage of that opportunity. I didn't score. I didn't play particularly well, and knowing that it would be a mountain to get back into the first team's picture, I put a ton of pressure on myself as a Timber, sometimes healthy, sometimes unhealthy. And to have gone through the various phases of my career as a Timber, where I was trying to break into the lineup in 2017 in the back half, to when I was a mainstay at the end of 2018, and a starter floating different positions in 2019, and a starter again like that in 2020 and 2021, every opportunity mattered. If I didn't complete X amount of passes or score at X goal rate, I was beating myself up, and I started to question what I was doing on the field, trying to change my game too quickly, maybe not quite trusting myself. And, sometimes that can get toxic. And I understand why I wouldn't tell a younger version of myself to change that way of thinking, because that edge gave me the power to perform as often as I did. But when I got to San Jose, I realized that it was a different environment. I think the different faces, first of all, just getting adjusted to a new team, guys wanting me to feel comfortable, they really put their arm around me. And where I was looking to repeat that cycle of, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z at X speed, they were like, okay, well, if X, Y, and Z don't happen right now, we know and we've seen based on your body of work that they will happen. And when they happen, they're going to happen over an extended period of time. So you're new to this team. It's tough to get traded in the middle of the year. We do want you to hit the ground running, but give yourself the time to hit that ground, because we know that when you do, it will be successful for you and for the team. Yeah. And that was coming from my coach. That was coming from some players in the locker room. The responsibility that they wanted me to take without burdening myself just gave me a balancing perspective to add to the growing rock of a mental personality that I had started to become as a Timber. And so, take that into 2022. There's some highs, there's some lows, some coaches moving on, some coaches taking over on a temporary basis, some coaching announcements, some real lows in terms of results, but ultimately some respectable runs as a team, and individually, a respectable run in the Golden Boot race. So a lot to build off of. This is a new year. Again, another new coach with fresh energy. That's really driving us to be the best version of ourselves individually and as a collective. And so it's on us to execute. We have started pretty well, but there's more. There's always more to give and more to achieve. And the hunger of this group is second to none. And I'll take it back to kind of something that you said. I'm the 9 for San Jose. Right now I'm the 9 for San Jose. But I have to earn that each and every day. And so that's the way I approach training. That's the way I approach games. Nothing's changed from that regard. There's no resting on anything, because I know if I rest, there's at least 2 or 3 other players on this team that are ready to snatch that spot. And who knows who's ready to come in as well. So we have a healthy environment. I have a healthy mindset moving into 2023, and hopefully that yields positive outcomes for both myself and the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think also just like listening to your mentality and thinking about, some of the lows you mentioned that the team has went through, and yet if you have that mentality, you're a young player, but you're a leader on the team. Without a question, you're a leader on the team, and I think that mentality bleeds down. You're a young team looking at some of these like Snapchats from your locker room. It's like, oh my God, you have some children on this team. So like having you as a voice, whereas you're not like the old head, but you're like someone who everyone looks to and respects, and you're still having the mentality of like, I'm not the 9, even though you just bagged 17 goals last year and are obviously on pace to do the same now. Like, I think that speaks to where the club is moving into, like that being a culture. Like you're a culture setter, So I think that's starting to show in the late game heroics, in the grit, in the grind of the team. So I just hope you recognize that, and not just like, that's your mentality just because who you are, but it's like it's actually having an influence on the club. And I think going through this year, it'll be really interesting to see how that continues to show up, because a lot of times that thing might not show up in that half season that you were there. Last season there's a lot of turmoil, so it might not show up. Now you've had a full season and a half season to really like make your mark, and I think this year is when it'll start to show, not in you but in other players, in the young players. So I'm excited to see that.
And I will give a quick shout to some of the other veterans on the team. I mean, I'll highlight like a guy like Christian Espinosa, DP player that comes in, and he's been healthy. I don't want to jinx anyone, but he's been healthy ever since I've been here, and before that as well. And he comes in and he sets the tone in training. Where I'm always joking with him like, hey, stop sprinting. It's the first run of the warm up. And that speaks to his energy. And so when you have the guy making the most money, the guy who's had the most storied career overseas, Argentina, Spain, and he comes to training like that, then who am I to take a day off, to take a play off? So good leadership group, and as always, I mean, we're hungry, so we have to show that we can execute.
So I mean, I've mentioned it a couple of times now. Last year 17 goals, this year already starting off strong. Again, listening to the podcast from last time, we were talking at that time about, I think it was the Tokyo Olympics, but more so the World Cup. Obviously, the World Cup has come and gone, but the national team, I'm sure, is still one of your goals, one of your objectives, a target that you have in your career. I mean, there's no beating around the bush of, you are a striker scoring goals. The U.S. is a country in need of goals. Obviously, for me, as someone who knows the game, knows you, it's frustrating to not see you get the opportunity that I feel and many others feel that you deserve with the national team. I don't want to go over this too much, but it must be frustrating to some degree. It must be motivating to some degree, but again, it's not like you're not performing. You are performing, and yet not necessarily getting opportunities to show it on the national stage, or the national team stage. So maybe just talk a little bit about your mentality around that. I mean, the fact that you continue to perform, I think, is the only thing that you can do, really. I mean, you're continuing to put pressure and continue to show why you deserve to be there. But maybe can you just speak to a little bit about your mentality around that? How has things shifted in the last couple of years in your thoughts of playing with the national team?
I think similar to my dream of going to Europe and how everything was dictated on, will this get me to this place or will this get me here? I had that same mentality with the national team. Dating back to as an academy kid, I would go to all these market trainings and hope that from that market training I would get to go to an actual camp. College days, same thing. If I score X amount of goals here, then how is that going to stack up against someone in the academy system that's still scoring goals, but maybe not in college because I graduated high school year early? How is that going to compare to a professional who's not playing games with their first team? There was a whole mental calculus behind it, all of which was driving my game forward, at times making it difficult mentally, but I believe that I was forging a holistic approach to high performance and consistent performance. I think that there are opportunities that sometimes are out of your hand, and people make decisions. You may agree with them, you may disagree with them. All I can hope as the player is that they are made on the basis of your body of work compared to someone else's.
Right.
If that is the case, then you can sit back and say, you know what, I wasn't good enough for X, Y, and Z reasons. I know what I need to work on, and I know that I'm going to get there, and hopefully that yields different results. Similarly to how the trade offered me a different perspective on, my career trajectory and where, frankly, I still think it can go, but just how I was going to get there. It gave me another look at the national team as well, and something that I'll always cherish and welcome, having the chance to represent the U.S. or, frankly, any of my countries. But it cannot be the only thing that brings fulfillment out of my career. Because when it's that elusive accolade, honor, pride, and you're unable to gratify that through your body of work, then it hits differently mentally. You start to question whether you're useful, not to be dramatic. And so with that, I'm here, I'm performing to the level that I'm performing at. There are highs, there are lows, but I hope that the body of work remains consistently at an elite level and that yields opportunities. But I also recognize that there are guys who have done well in their respective competitions. Some guys have waited a long time for their chance too. Yeah. So we're all kind of in this waiting game and trying to get hot at the right moment, making sure that if we do get the opportunity that we grasp it with two hands. And so while I welcome that opportunity in the future, I know that I will find fulfillment out of my career, whether I'm on the right side of an individual's decisions or not.
That's well said. That's very well said. I don't know if I would have said that so well, but yeah, I mean, bro, like you're doing everything you can. I think the fact that you have this perspective of like not hanging all of your fulfillment, all of the success of your career on these certain moments, on this kind of fairy tale, I think is a very healthy mindset. Like, I mean, you got to be doing, I'm curious actually, what is your like mental training? I know like one day you had to get home early because you were doing like, I think some sort of meditation or breathwork thing, but like, because I mean, you have a very like mature and put together like mindset, and not to say that other people your age don't, but like, I mean, you are very, I feel like, locked in, but also have perspective, which is rare because a lot of people are locked in, and that locked inness is a reason they're successful, but it also is a reason they're like unhappy because they're so locked in. And if anything strays outside of that vision, it's like everything crumbles. So like maybe just speak a little bit on just like, obviously the trade was one thing, but just this more holistic perspective. And this, I think, actually can lead into the next thing, like, is your off the field stuff, has off the field things maybe change your perspective being in the Silicon Valley, having more opportunities off the field? Has that changed maybe the way you see this grand, thing that is your career?
Yeah, a few parts to that question. I think I'll kind of start with, I've always seen my career as an opportunity, yes, to fulfill my childhood dream to play soccer at the highest level that I could attain, but also I've seen it as a vehicle to promote so many different avenues of my life, helping other people, bringing people up with me. And I think that the Bay Area ecosystem provides me everything that I'm looking for in that regard today, in my current state and performance level. Mentally, I mean, I've been through everything. I've been through the top of the top. I've been at the very bottom. Most people don't know this about me, but summer of 2018, I wasn't starting for T2. There was a run of 2 to 3 games where I was coming off the bench, and I was wondering whether I would ever get back to the first team. And to say that I had this rock solid mentality that I knew everything was going to work out if I just worked hard, that'd be a lie. I sat there questioning the essence of my career. Am I going to be someone who leaves college early and busts? Am I someone who all of the older parents in the neighborhood, in the school associations, teachers, whoever, who they will point to as an example, this is why you focus on your studies? And I'm talking about that rather emotionless right now. But when those questions are popping in a 21-year-old's mind who has invested everything into their career, it's not emotionless. You're at a low. And those lows come back in different moments, whether it's MLS Cup at the end of 2018. And I didn't have that holistic perspective where I'm like, okay, well, look where you were 5 months ago. You weren't even on the second team bench. You just started an MLS Cup. So yes, it's hard tonight, but you have taken massive strides to be proud of. I didn't see it then. It's when you look back that you can see it. Those moments pop up again in 2020, 2021, just the odd bat, terrible performance that I'm ashamed of. But getting back on your feet, understanding that, A, you're not defined by your last performance or your worst performance, and detaching yourself a little bit from your performance. Okay, that's who I was in that moment. That's not who I will be next weekend. That's not who I'm going to be tomorrow in training.
Right.
Working with a sports psychologist, going to therapy, meditating on a regular cadence, all of these different manners, finding mental or physical health professionals outside your team environment that you can confide in to prepare you to perform, while also taking care of any anxieties that you might have about your physical ability to perform to 100% of your capabilities. I mean, all of those things are part of an evolving machine that puts together, the product that you see Saturday night. And some of that comes with the luxury of having made it through my first contract, having a little bit more money to explore who is the network that I need to perform at the highest level. But ultimately, I think every player needs it. Sports psychology, therapy. We are lucky in MLS to have the SABH program and the soccer docs that allow us to see mental health professionals. So it's hugely important to pursue those avenues so that you can take advantage of everything on the field and off the field.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, you're doing it, bro. We can hear it. All right, let's get into a little bit of the fun stuff here. I mentioned it briefly in that last run-on question, but about coming to the Bay Area and opportunities off the field. You've seen it now kind of with other sports. You have Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors and 35 Ventures making all these crazy investments. Andre Iguodala is doing it right now with his different portfolio off the court and especially in Silicon Valley. How has being in the Bay Area changed your idea of what you're doing off the field? And maybe just speak a little bit about your your interests in investment and business prior to coming here, and then now that you've gotten here, maybe talk about some of the investments that you've made, just kind of your mentality around these different opportunities that are presenting themselves off the field.
Yeah, I'll start with kind of my basis, which is the community piece.
Yeah.
As I hope that my career takes me to a place where, or continues to take me to a place where I can influence younger generations trying to achieve dreams, successes on and off the field. I hope that my off-field ventures will do the same. I've been fortunate to connect with different nonprofits on the ground, to work with those kids on a regular basis, and that's something that will always stay near and dear to my heart and just my passions. But kind of evolving a little bit from who I was in Portland, my business desires or interests have been scattered. It was a lot of theory based, like, okay, do I want to do X, or what are the benefits of pursuing this strategy versus another? But there wasn't a lot of action going on. And
it helps when we get a little bit of a bag, when you have the like when you don't have the means to make some of these investments is a little harder. But that new contract may have opened up some possibilities. Sorry, just to add that.
Yeah, it's all relative, but yes, undoubtedly. Coming into the Bay, I wanted to hone in on what an ecosystem is known for and really get to know that sector of the ecosystem. There's a few things that I've decided to kind of keep my eye out on here, one of which being kind of urban planning, housing, and understanding the unaffordability of homes in the area and everything that goes into that, which has kind of yielded some of the nonprofit relationships that I've built here. And then when I look at the startup ecosystem, that was a huge goal of mine, to get to know different startups, to understand how they go from an idea to a business to an IPO, and going through that kind of trajectory, I recognize that venture capital is a big part of that. Being able to raise money. I mean, you're seeing it with Neighborhood Sports Club and what you're trying to do. Nothing works without getting money, and seeking that money is rather difficult. So I've had the good fortune of kind of being on both ends of it, seeing people start their own brands, businesses. Our mutual friend Ebobisse Kugo and Frugal Athlete, seeing him work that up from the ground up, seeing you with NSC. And I've also had the chance to speak to a number of investors on the other side of it, to see what they look for in companies, to see how they evaluate a company relative to the next. Because, for every unicorn that you see that's now a household name, there are probably anywhere from a few to a dozen with the exact same idea that just never made it. And what differentiates those two. So it's been really interesting. What I've taken away is that you can do the research, you can talk to whoever, but you're never going to know what it's like until you have skin in the game. And then you have, phone calls with founders, and you're looking after your money in a different way. And you're trying to build this reputation for yourself so that you can help other people crack into an ecosystem that maybe isn't super welcoming. When you look at venture, when you look at startups, it's not the easiest neighborhood or club to break into. And every day you see different shops trying to provide that access, but shops come and go. And it's always going to be the same ones that are consistently performing at the top. So how do you find a similar ability to deliver returns so that you can benefit, but also the people around you can benefit? That's kind of what I've been navigating the last 18 months. I've done that by investing direct in a company, by investing in funds and fund managers that I believe in, and then getting to know our portfolio companies and watching them go from some of them seed stage, hopefully to something better, and others just watching their process wherever I joined in at.
What is your favorite part? Because I mean, there's a lot. There could be investing in a company because you like the product. There could be investing in a company because you think it's going to 100x an IPO and make a ton of money. You can invest in a product because the product's okay, but the founder is someone worth investing in. So like, where have you enjoyed the most, just in this space? Because there's a lot of different ways you can kind of be involved.
Man, it's all of that.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a cop-out answer, but each product, each idea that you listen to is so different. Each aspect that draws you in is entirely different from what's going to bring you into a different company. And so I think I go back to the relationships. And for me, I think it's a relationship builder.
Yeah.
There have been times when I've liked the product or liked the brand, and maybe I wasn't sure where it was going, but I knew that the founder was brilliant, or at least that was my intuition. There have been other times where I felt like the data shows, the body of work shows that it is a worthwhile investment. I'm not writing large checks. People who are letting me into the cap table are not letting me in because I am going to be sustaining their company. They're letting me in for what I bring to the table from a mindset point of view, from my connections, from my network, and just from the subject matter expertise that I do have in the areas that I have it. And so I always keep that in mind. If someone's approach is money first, conversation later, then it's probably not someone that I see myself building a relationship with. But the people that want to grow together, that have their base of expertise that I feel is complementary to what I bring to the table, I want to find a way to work together. Sometimes it'll be financially, other times it'll just be relationally as we're building out each other's networks. But I'm always here for a conversation.
Yeah.
Good people in my network have always been the same. And there are other players that are doing similar. They're just not talking about it as often, or they're at different stages of their process, but it's here, it's in the Bay. And I've had the opportunity to, sit in on info sessions with VCs. I've had the opportunity to, again, talk to founders. There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah.
I mean, I think just that one thing you said, like if someone's coming to you for money first, then they're probably not the person for you. It's like, I mean, if someone were to come to you for money and not everything else you bring to the table, that would be stupid. Talking a little bit about what else you bring to the table, you are now, I mean, you always have been, but you're growing a brand. You're growing this King Jabo brand. And so what has that been like, growing your own personal brand here? I do take like 2% credit for the Coogee sweater being featured on Kalen Acosta's Fits of the Week, whatever. We could talk about that later. But just like kind of now that you're in this position, what is your thoughts on growing your personal brand, and what are some things that maybe you haven't done yet? Or I know we talk about different ideas, but just anything you're kind of looking to bring to the table in terms of bringing or building your own brand, and kind of avenues you see moving into. Obviously you have investment, but just other things that you're interested in that maybe people might want to know about.
Yeah, I think we were speaking to this offline a little bit.
Yeah.
And I said to you, if you don't own what you're doing, you're only contributing to someone else building what they're doing, and you're not necessarily going to see the upside from it. So that there's a short-term mindset where if you maybe join a big machine, you have access to things that you might not have had access to on your own. You might get some benefits financially, even within the sector that you're in. Yeah. But where are you going long-term with that? And are you in control of your destiny in those situations? And sometimes, and sometimes those might be the right paths for individuals for any number of reasons. But when you have the opportunity to own something, build it from the ground up, and you know what you're doing, and you have the right support, which I believe you do with NSC.
Thank you.
The potential is limitless. The risk is there too. Yeah. But I said, most importantly, you're wasting time if you lose. Yeah. You will be able to recover financially. I knowing you and believing in what you've done, that's not the concern. And so the King Jabo brand is an opportunity to do that for myself as well.
Yeah.
Knowing that if I'm coming to the table with a partnership, whether it's, I don't know, a sports drink or a company that is in the community or trying to use my image to sell something, they will not just use my image, they will use my brand, and that will be represented. So I'm not falling under X brand. No, it's X brand and Jeremy.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was an important representation to have, important brand to have. You know, shout out to Mobi Okugo again, showing the way in that realm. And it's an opportunity to show where I am relative to anyone. Okay, and if someone's not okay with the brand being represented, I'm not saying it has to be front and center.
Yeah.
But it has to be acknowledged as an equal partner or as a proportional partner to the work that's going into it. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna be it's there. You know, it's in my nonprofit work. It's in my business work, and it's represented by my shield, which happens to be my Instagram and Twitter pictures at the moment. But I encourage young players to understand the power of their name, image, likeness, as we're seeing all these college sports and the governing structures that have changed over the years, because young players give themselves away for free. I did it.
Yeah.
I was there.
Me too.
It sounds amazing, and at a lot of times it is amazing.
Yeah.
But what happens when a brand no longer wants you? Mm-hmm. What are you left with? Did you go into that brand and take advantage of all of their resources? That's difficult to do at a young time when you're trying to establish yourself as a professional. So if you didn't do those things and they no longer want you, those doors are likely closed and you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're understanding what you bring to the table, able to represent yourself, people will look at you with a little bit more respect. First of all, they know that they are not going to be able to walk all over you or not factor you into opportunities, decisions.
Right.
And from there, you will have the opportunity to acquire a whole new skill set, a whole new base of knowledge that can propel you into wherever you want to go next when you and the brand part ways for whatever reason. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I started a little bit late, but I'm around creators. I'm around people who have built brands, some successful, some still on their way to success. And so I'm learning. You know, the most important thing is being a resource to young players, just like the older guys were a massive, massive help to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I don't know if you started late. I don't know. I think it may have just been the timing of things. Like, I think you're just fine. And I think you're actually like you're picking up these ideas for how to build your brand at the perfect moment when the resources are available and people will help you build these things. I think, well, first of all, just thank you for the kind words about NSC and kind of what we're building. But no, I agree 100%. We were talking about this before offline of just like the power of ownership. Like, you know, I've talked to Raheem. Actually, you know Raheem? Yeah, I've talked to Raheem a little bit about this of like, at the end of the day, like if you know what you're capable of, which I know what I'm capable of, you know what you're capable of, Raheem knows what he's capable of, like you can always go work for someone else. Like you always know what you can bring to any situation. But we're at a time now when there's so much information and resources, and especially being people who put ourselves in situations to be successful, we know that if we apply ourselves, we can do some really great things. So I think part of it is, you know, having that self-belief that what I build will be sustainable, you know? And I think there's this idea of like, everyone wants to have a brand now, you know? And it's like, it's a little bit like fucking, and I'm not trying to say everyone shouldn't have a brand, but it's like, it's a little bit like Twitter where it's like, not everybody needs to be tweeting their opinion, you know, like, but I think, you know, certain people want to have a brand for the wrong reasons. You want to have a brand. I want to have a brand as a vehicle to create impact, to do a lot of positive things, whether it's in our community, in the country as a whole, just in this world. A brand is a vehicle to create impact. And I think you are definitely on the trajectory to doing that. And I'm excited to help out in any way in making some of these visions come to life. And yeah, I'm excited to see the King Jabo takeover.
I think the last thing I'll say to all that is,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the era of athlete empowerment.
Yeah.
In a number of ways. You know, we've had players of tons of sports, you know, in the 60s and beyond, and even earlier, that have paved the way in so many different ways, so that today we get to look up to, you know, LeBron and his various ventures, whether you're talking about Uninterrupted, More Than a Vote at the time, you know, Spring Hill Studios, you're looking at KD with 35 Ventures, Boardroom, and the list goes on, you know, with all these players and their foundations as well, and how they're impacting their community. So the blueprint's there. You know, not everyone's going to make the tens of millions of dollars that these guys make annually, but there is something smaller scale that we can replicate. We're not reinventing the wheel. We are tapping into our network as athletes and as creatives, who can help us tailor our mission to the people that we want to serve.
Yeah,
and that's what it's about, really. It's continuing to set the stage for, you know, ourselves to explore these opportunities, but also for the younger players to see, okay, this is what X player who's not a superstar was able to create and how he was able to impact lives. Okay, what's next for me? I don't have to start from square one. I can start with what this person created and learned, and then take it my own direction.
Yeah. No, that was well said. All right. I mean, I think that this was great. I'm glad that we got to do this. Shit, 2 years later. Let's do it again, not 2 years
In
later.
2 years.
Yeah, no, let's not do it in 2 years. Let's do it soon. But yeah, we're local now. We can do it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
No, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.